Welcome to Permission to Kick Ass, a podcast about leaving self-doubt in the dust, punching fear in the face, and taking bold action toward your biggest dreams. I'm Angie Coley, and let's get to it. Hey, and welcome back to Permission to Kick Ass. With me today, I'm very excited to introduce Behdad Jamshidi. Say hi, B.
Hello.
We met only very recently, and it was just one of those serendipitous things where I see you posting smart things in a forum, and I'm like, I got to get to know this person. And then we had a Zoom call, and we just hit it off, and like, now we're just in each other's lives, and it's fantastic.
Exactly. Every time I speak to Angie, I'm very excited to speak to Angie.
It's funny because I can't tell you how many times I do like 20-minute get to know you calls that last 20 minutes. And it's like, okay, cool. I know that person now. And I think you and I went for like an hour and we're ranting about food and business philosophics and all kinds of crazy stuff. I love it.
Yeah. That's what happens when you put two good people together.
Yes. Oh, the power of good people and connecting. So tell us a little bit more about you and your business.
So as you know, but the leaders probably don't know. So I work as a marketing broker. I used to, do a bunch of engineering things and leadership and sales and all that different kind of stuff. I got into the marketing world, doing websites and like Google Ads and SEO. Got to a point where I just didn't have enough time because I have a full-time job and I was doing too many things at once. And so I thought, cool, what if I was just to like start adding some partners to the network and maybe work with them on projects? And as I did that, I noticed that like most marketing agencies didn't understand business and most business people didn't understand marketing, which was a huge problem. So I started kind of, putting people in those meetings and they're not speaking the same language. So I thought, okay, what if I built out my own network of people that I trust? I understand business. I'm able to talk to business people and then see what they really need and then tie them to the right marketing partners. So over the last 3 years, I've spoken to hundreds of agencies, likely somewhere between 300 and 500. And I really wish that I kept a tally because that number would be really cool. But now I work with about 70-ish partners. And all I do is talk to businesses, connect them with the right marketing partners.
I think that's so important, like having somebody in that translator role, because I think that you are absolutely right that they don't understand each other. I literally just got off a coaching call. I coach a lot of writers, marketing writers. And I was telling them like the great downfall I see to the copywriting industry is this kind of illusion grandeur that we've built up, which don't get me wrong, copywriting is kind of a magical industry. I don't know of many other professions where like you can just sit down and write an email and like make a couple $1,000 and like go about your day. If you've set your business up that way, it's a pretty magical superpower to have. But there's also this weird kind of thing in the advertising and like the lore surrounding learning copywriting that, proprietary techniques and having something that is 1,000% unique about yourself that nobody else has ever figured out in the history of mankind. Like it gets a little bit ridiculous. And I constantly have to remind people like, you're coming at this from an educated writer. Like you've been studying this. You know a lot about marketing and about copywriting, and you're not understanding that the business owners don't know as much about marketing as you do. And you're like undervaluing it, and you're studying more and more and more and thinking that you have to get to like this mythical level of expertise before anybody will give you a shot. And I'm like, I'm telling you that there are business owners out there that would be over the moon if you told them, well, yeah, I mean, the reason that opt-in page isn't working is, did you mean to leave off the button? Was that an oversight? Was there something else you were going for here? And I was like, and that's not to make light of business owners and say they're clueless. I think I fall very firmly into the camp that when I see people being like, oh, the client just doesn't get it. The client gets it. The client was smart enough to build a business from the ground up and make enough money to pay you, the contractor. So they get it. They're smart. You are also smart. So now this is about how we put our smarts together. Even though, you may not understand the business side of it and they may not understand the marketing side of it. How do we collaborate?
Yeah, it all comes down to communication.
And it's so funny to me, like how often that miscommunication happens. And I'm just going to keep beating that drum of like marketers respect the business owners and know that they know a lot about their craft and their people and their service and their offering. And business owners respect the marketers because they know a lot about what's working and the easiest levers to pull that will activate those little hinges that swing the big doors. And it doesn't always have to be complicated. So it's fantastic.
Yeah, makes sense. And the one thing I'd add on top of that is I wish everyone would just take conflict resolution courses so that they can deal with conflict in a very healthy way.
Oh my gosh.
Probably help them in all aspects.
I feel like that's a theme that has been coming up in a lot of like my coaching and mastermind calls, especially in the past week. Having a community, feeling your feelings, because business can get intense every once in a while. And like, it's okay to go to your private mastermind group and go, well, this sucks and everything is falling apart. Can I just cry for a little bit? Okay, cool. Now we're back into action mode. Let's get this done. We have emotions, we have hard situations. Even people that absolutely adore each other are going to fight from time to time, whether it's a bad day or you're genuinely not seeing eye to eye. Actually, I think you would appreciate this because you recently met my new business partner. And when she and I realized that we wanted to work together, that we were actively thinking going into a business, the very first thing that we did was sit down and talk about our vision and what working together meant to us. Mm-hmm. And I told her, okay, this is going to seem very blunt and like out of nowhere, but I need you to know, and I need to see if you're on the same page, that the most important thing to me is this relationship. And let me be clear. I mean by that if we go into business together and things for whatever reason don't work out, or the business starts to drive a wedge between us, we walk away, we sell it, we dismantle it, we buy each other out, something. But I want to preserve the relationship, even if it means the business fails.
Cool. Yeah.
And she really went like, I know she was kind of astonished because she said, wow, that's kind of the thing that shouldn't need to be said. And I'm also glad that you said it, because now we've got that out there and we're totally in alignment on this. Like, I don't want to go into anything thinking that, worst case scenario, we're never going to talk to each other again and this business falls apart. Like, well, if the business falls apart, we're still going to come out of this the other side and figure out a new thing, Yeah.
Very cool. Very mature.
It's hard to have those conversations though. It's taken a lot of like self-work, self-development and practice over the last few years of just an experimentation too. I would say that if you struggle with hard conversations, just try saying, that I'm struggling with that. And I'm probably not going to use the right words, but let me try and explain where I'm coming from. Just using that little script could help you with a lot of hard conversations, I think, and take a little bit of the edge off of it. But conflict resolution, it's a skill. Develop it, please. Yes.
Agreed. I love it.
Now that we've kicked this call off with a bunch of random mini rants, I love it. We were talking before we started recording a little bit about your experience with building up CJAM and becoming a marketing broker and how you brought on a business partner. So do you want to just dive right in and tell us about everything that happened?
Yeah. The cool part is it actually relates to the story that you just told me. And nice. So CJAM, initially when it started, I actually had a co-founder. So we both kind of did it together. He was the guy who gave me the idea of passive income. He implanted that in my head. Mm-hmm. And that you could do it through marketing. And so we were friends before as well. We still are friends, which is the good part. And so he was quite a bit older than me. I think about 20 years or so, maybe a bit more. But, when we were talking and started thinking about this marketing idea and the passive income stuff, like we were both on board. We both had like the same vision and guide to go forward. And so as we kind of started working together for the first 4 or 6 months, we were super professional about it, the way that we went through it. Like we had, the lawyers dropped off the papers, all that different kind of stuff so that everything was organized. And if anyone ever wanted to leave, that was also possible. But in the beginning of that relationship, it was very, we would talk to each other, we'd call each other, we'd build that relationship. We liked talking about the business. We liked talking about customers. There was a lot of sharing of excitement. And at some point our goals changed, right? Like, cause he was older and he's like, look, this is going to take a lot of work, to do. And so, we had that conversation of like, listen, this is not working for him. And I'm not going to keep someone in the company if it's not working for them. And so we decided to part ways. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of where the story comes to, like, what were some of the hardest, times that you've had at CJAM? That was that's definitely the top 3. Mm-hmm. For me at that time, like just starting out, I was always a collaborator. I always liked working with other people. I never really thought that I could do it myself. But luckily, as I do a lot of self-reflection, I do a lot of counseling, I do a lot of that stuff, and I do it because I get to, take in what life gives me and not let it rattle me as much as it normally would. And I'm back in action faster. So during that time, I remember a time he told me that we'd had probably like 4 or 5 customers at that point. So CJAM was like going, the idea was working. But I just remember I was like, oh man, like, how am I going to do this without a partner? There's just so much work to do, so many things to do. Do I have the skill set to do it? Do I have the drive, the grit, like that, all that kind of stuff? And I remember sitting on this, we have a bench in our house and it's just like this big, I literally was like face down looking at the ground on the other side, just being like, how am I going to do this?
Oh man.
So that was an interesting time. And my wife would come over, she's like, you can do it. I'm like, yeah, right now I don't feel that. So for like 2 or 3 days, I was just kind of going through the process of loss and like change and like all the imposter syndrome and all that stuff. Yeah.
It's so interesting to me how often like themes come up in completely unrelated discussions, like just like I notice patterns that happen around me, and I think it's just a way that my brain works. But there's been a lot of conversation, especially around like hard feelings and being able to give yourself space to grieve, right? Because grieve, I think a lot of what you described right there was a form of grief. Like here's kind of a miniature death of the thing that I thought I was building. Here is all of this, self-doubt piling on, wondering about where I can do it. The anxiety spiral, I'm sure, started. And the interesting thing about it to me was like, yeah, the way that you described it was very calm. And obviously you've had some space and time and it made it sound like it happened really quick. But I imagine this was something that was building over time, maybe, or like took some time to dissolve. Or
I had like some feelings that it was coming at some point. But it wasn't like a long stretch. Like it was probably over like 2 weeks. It was like, okay, I feel like there's something coming. At some point, he's not as invested in this as I am. Like you get that feeling, right? So mentally kind of prepared for that. So yeah, and then the amount of time that it took me to actually recover from it was only 3 days. So that was like super surprising, and it's honestly because of the amount of work that I have done mentally pre-hand that allowed me to only take 3 days. And actually, one of the things that actually made me shift out of that was actually a conversation with him after the fact.
Interesting.
Which was really, really cool. Because he said something to me that really hit home. And he was like, Behdad, he's like, first of all, he's like, look, I think you can do this business yourself. Like you've been doing it anyways. Like I'm not helping that much. You brought in all the customers, like you're doing all the stuff. And you're just kind of like taking me for the ride. And he said, the reason why we find business partners is because they fill a hole in a skill set that we don't have, or certain skills that we don't have. And so when he told me that, my engineering brain turned on and I went, okay, what skills was he filling the hole for? And when I thought about it, it came down to 2 things. And the 2 things were, one was having a sounding board of someone that I could speak to, right? Like I have all these ideas and I like to like pitch it off people to tell me if I'm like, hey, you're so off or not off or whatever. That was one. And then the other one was he was much more experienced in sales than I was. And so, I'm a perfectionist. Like if I'm not number 1, I think I'm last. Like that's typically how my brain was like, as I grew up, right? Like, I always thought that I was not smart until someone asked me the question of, Behdad, when you say you're not smart, let's go back to like high school and say, out of the 30 kids in your class, where would you be? And I was like, typically top 3. And so for me though, I always thought of the person that was number 1 as in like, that's the smart guy. I'm not smart because this guy's just like another level. He gets 100% on every test. So I always have this like, black and white view of like yes or no. That's shifted over the time. So now like that's kind of gone away. So for when I'm talking about him and his sales skills, I was like, man, this guy's like the next level sales guy, like, making insane amount of money. He's really good at like just the small details of wordings and like an email back to a customer and stuff. And I was like, I'm not at that level. I'm like 85% of the way there. And so when I thought about that, I was like, okay, well, now these are the 2 problems. One is he's super high at the salesperson. I can't be that 100%. And also the collaboration piece. And then I went, okay, well, how do I fill this gap without a partner? Right. And when I thought about it, I went, okay, cool. I'm actually working with, at that time, I was probably working with about like 10 agencies at that time. I was like, look, I built some really strong connections with these agencies. They could be my sounding board because they know my business inside and out. My wife is a sounding board because she knows my business inside and out, gives me a whole different perspective. And so once I kind of like solved that fear dissipated. And then the second part was the sales side. And I was like, well, can I use you as a consultant if I ever need to? Like, if I have a hard email or whatever. Or I reached out to my full-time gig and was like, look, I want more sales training, for example. Right. Funny enough, like once you had a solution for the problem, even if you don't use the solution, the fear is dissipated.
Yes. Oh my God. There's so many good things. Like I was just writing all kinds of notes here. One, yay for sounding boards. Yay for getting it out of your own head where it just like bounces around in between your ears and builds up into this giant unsolvable problem that leads down an anxiety spiral and like all of these feelings. Like, yay, sounding boards. Also, your former partner, if you are listening to this, sir, you are a scholar and a gentleman. And I appreciate you for like taking that time to be like, B, you've got all the skills that you need. And like, if you feel like you don't have skills, here's how to fill those gaps and identify them. That's such, I think that speaks to the power of developing emotional intelligence and building a business based on relationships, not what can I get out of this person? How can I maximize my revenue? Like, I'm in the business of relationships, I think. And I even said this to one person yesterday, like, I'm not aiming to go to my grave and like, here lies Angie, she made millions of dollars. If I go to my grave and I am broke, but I was able to make relationships and impact a lot of people in a positive way, then to me, that's a life well lived, even if I never make another dollar. Obviously, I hope I want to make some more dollars, but my priority is always the people first. And I thought that was interesting because I totally agree with you. So many people that I know that have achieved any level of success to aspire toward focus on self-development. They do the work. They have the hard conversations. They face down the anxiety. They open up and invite people in to their, the deepest, darkest fears, even in a business context. And I think that was one of the biggest realizations for me when I was kind of a novice copywriter, is the first time that I got to be in a room, like a high level mastermind, people that have 8, 9 and beyond figure businesses trying to figure out problems. And I had been studying marketing and business and stuff for weeks, preparing to go into this room and say some really smart things. First of all, take the pressure off yourself to be the smartest person in the room. If you're the smartest person in the room, I don't remember where I heard this quote, you're in the wrong room. You really should be in a room with people that are as smart, if not way smarter than you. They've got a lot of things figured out where you still have gaps and growth to do. And just being in their presence is going to be like, wow, okay, cool, let's do this. And second of all, I think the biggest shock to me was learning that, I get in that room and people are talking about dealing with a divorce. Dealing with and I'm keeping this vague on purpose. So y'all can't identify the mastermind, but they're talking about nerves over launching a new product. Is this product going to be the one that kills everything that I've ever worked on and destroys me finally? Like all of the same worries that I've experienced at every stage of my business for as long as I've been in business. And that just made it click for me. Like, oh, these are the same problems, just at a different scale. Okay, there's not a whole lot different between me and these people making millions and millions of dollars, aside from, just the volume that they're doing. Same problems, different scale.
Yeah, it doesn't change as you get bigger. It's all the same. And for me, I find like I've done a lot of leadership courses. I've done a lot of those types of things. And I've been in rooms with VPs and CFOs and all that different kind of stuff for big businesses. And in those leadership courses, and I kind of sit there, and a lot of the basics of life are not like they're still figuring out, like, so they've been working so hard in their career and all that different kind of stuff that they haven't had enough time to actually sit down and think about what they want or what matters to them or who they are. Like all this stuff, they haven't spent the time doing it. Mm-hmm. And so for me, it's like, look, I have a ton to learn from you on the business side, but man, do you have stuff to learn from me about the emotional intelligence side? Because that's where I focus my attention. And as you said, like, relationships are the way you build everything. Like everything, my whole business, like whether it has a contract, but my whole contract's built off a trust-based model. Like if our relationship doesn't work out, like I'm not going to go enforce a contract on you. I don't really care, to be honest. Mm-hmm. I'm just not going to send you any more leads in the future if it doesn't work out. Like that's kind of how my business works.
Oh yeah. That made me, I see that happening in a lot of freelancer groups all the time where people trot out the contract as if it's a magic shield that can just like force the other person to do what you want. You signed a contract. I'm like, look, at the end of the day, that's a piece of fucking paper. And if somebody doesn't want to do what they signed to, you can either choose to spend a whole lot of money and mental effort to take them to court, which is the nuclear option that relationship is probably not going to recover from.
Yeah.
Or you can take the L and realize that like you did a deal with somebody that you couldn't really trust. And
That's
I'm not saying don't have a contract. Have contracts. That's not like consult your lawyer. Don't take legal advice from a podcast host.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Have a contract
still,
either way, but
like understand that if things fall apart and the relationship fails, either because you couldn't get those skills to have the hard conversation and salvage the relationship, or any number of things why relationships fall apart, that paper is not going to force somebody to do something they don't want to do. You could even take them to court and get a judgment and they still don't pay. Like, it's not magic. It's just a piece of paper.
It's funny you brought that. Like, literally, I have a story from yesterday where closed a deal with a very large deal, like a very large deal.
Congrats.
Yeah, which was pumped. And then the guy the agency that I've been working with for the last like 4 months to close this, he's like, hey, I didn't see our agency contract. And I was like, oh no, we signed one. And like, this is rare. Like, I don't ever forget to send an agency contract. So I look, I'm like, oh, we don't have one. And then, so this guy could have just been like, all right, well, good luck, man. I'm going to just keep this extra multi-thousands of dollars a month moving forward, and good luck. But he was like, no, man, send me over the agency agreement. I'll take care of that either today or tomorrow. And he literally did it within an hour.
Yeah.
Like, he could have walked away with many thousands of dollars extra from a massive customer that we just closed together. But that's the kind of person that like, I sussed him out. We talked, we built a relationship, and that's how strong the relationship was, is that, hey, I could, make an extra $5,000 a month and walk away. Or I can give you what you deserve because that's the deal we had. And that's, that's how we wanted to move forward. Right.
Yeah. And I've definitely done some pretty big business on handshake deals before. Like, we just got so caught up in the excitement of finding a thing to work together on that contracts slipped the mind, just like you said. And we just went to work and we had an agreement. And anytime there was a lack of clarity on what was happening, we just hopped on the phone, we hashed it out, and we just kept going. And I did have somebody once bring up that, like, doesn't that make you scared? Like, what happens if they don't pay you? I was like, then I stop working.
Yeah.
And like, they don't get the thing that they were looking to me to provide value on. So like, it's painful for them to stop paying me because they face a consequence. So like, there's skin in the game on both sides here, and I have power just as much as they do. Like, yeah, I want their money, but they want my expertise, and that's why they hired me to begin with. So
that's it. That's the same thing for me, man. I get people asking me, Behdad, like, because I have like different models, and like, what if they don't tell you about this, or the customer spent more? I'm like, well, look at it this way. My customers trust me. Like, I talk to all my customers, even after I introduce them to my agencies. If at one point I find out an agency is like, they didn't pay me a certain commission that I was supposed to get paid, guess what? I'm not sending you customers in the future. And I have agencies that have made, 200 to 400K off my introductions over the course of a year and a half. So if you want to risk that for a couple $1,000, go for it. The thing is, you'll lose me, but it's not even that. It's like, if you go through life with that mindset, like, you're not just going to hurt for me. At some point, other businesses are not going to trust you. Like, it's just not good for who you are as a person.
My friend calls it stepping over dollars to pick up dimes. Like, it's so short-sighted to conduct your business that way. Especially, like, look, I've had people argue with me over, whether you should pay referral fees and stuff like that. And to me, I'm like, oh my gosh, that is like the easiest check that I am going to cut in my entire life. You're telling me that somebody that is a fan that thinks that I'm freaking awesome is going to go out and like hand pick some people that they think I would do kick-ass work with and just connect us. And I didn't have to go out and like do some cold calls. I didn't have to attend a conference. I didn't have to do a whole bunch of like screening meetings with a bunch of people that were the wrong fit. Like, we just connected, and the odds of us working together are pretty high because of that connection and the thought that you put into this. And I don't want to pay this person a portion of that for making my job a whole hell of a lot easier. What?
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
Again, stepping over dollars to pick up dimes. Like, that doesn't make any damn sense. Why would you short the person that shortcutted your process?
It's a short, like you said, it's short-sighted. Like, for example, I have agencies that have been in my network, and I haven't sent them a lead for the last year. Like, but in my head, I'm like, they paid to get into my network. I trust them. They do good work. I've constantly been like, where can I help this person out? Just recently, one of the agencies, I was just like talking to Basically a company that does basically they find consultants for big companies like Fortune 500 type stuff. And this agency has been in the back of my mind. I'm like, hey, look, if you need someone that does dev at a super, super high level, like next level type work, and you're working with these Fortune 500s, let me introduce you to this person. And so like now I introduced them and it looks like it's a good fit. And this was something I did like a couple of days ago, but I'm like, man, if that relationship works, that could be multiple customers. And the cool part is the person that's going to be sending the referrals over to my agency, well, then I get a kickback, but then I'm also giving a kickback to them. So like literally every single person is winning in this relationship. Yes. Like, and where are you going to, how many calls are you having? Like I'm doing this like full time. I'm basically talking to people all the time. I'm meeting people. And when I find people that fit, I could send you one lead that's going to send you 10 customers.
Right.
Why would you say no to something like it? Just makes no sense to me.
This is why I love like the relationship business. I think so many people, like when they hear that, they start thinking, again, like in this kind of competition, adversarial type thing where it's like, but what if we work together to create the win-win-win scenario where like one of us takes a step forward and everybody gets pulled? Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And there's so much incentive for us to all work together. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
And then there were so many, like, see, I'm just keeping a log of notes of all of the brilliance that you're saying, because there are a couple of things that I wanted to go back and cover. One was this idea of like posturing, pretending everything is on the up and up, because I know I fell into that trap very early on in my career and just thought that you have to present this certain image of the world. You can't show no chinks in the armor. You can't show anybody that you're vulnerable or you don't have your shit together. Right. And I'm not saying, one of my mentors put it best. It was like, share from scars, not open wounds. Right. When you're going through it, don't go snot bubble tears live on a Facebook. Like once the emotions pass, it's probably going to be a lot less intense. So just like give yourself time to grieve. Right. Yeah. Feel the feelings. But I cannot believe, and right, hindsight is 2020. I cannot believe how much of my own growth I stunted for years. How much further I could have gone if only I had opened up and said, I'm stuck here. Could somebody help me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Instead of trying to figure it out. And that like dovetails perfectly with one of the other things that you mentioned that I wanted to unpack. And there's this idea of say yes and figure it out, which I think people have some strong feelings one way or another about it. Because I think the context around that is like say yes and figure it out. And then get paid to stumble through it and make mistakes on somebody else's dime. But one of the smartest guys that I know, he's actually been on the show. His name is Ross O'Loughlin. He taught me this strategy. I call it a strategy. I think it's super smart. When I was newer to the copies, and there's a bunch of different copywriting that you could specialize in. You could write advertorials or emails or long form sales letters, right? And there are people that literally just make their money doing one type. Mm-hmm. And what Ross would do is say yes to a project and then immediately go find somebody in his network that was an expert at that and pay most, if not all of the fee to that person. No, he wouldn't get them to do it. He would get them to oversee him doing it and teach him the way that they would do it. And they get the fee for that. He gets the knowledge. And now he can go out and confidently sell this to other people. And by this exact same thing that you mentioned, reach out to that mentor every once in a while and be like, hey, can I buy an hour? Buy an hour of your time. I ran into a snafu and I can't figure this out on my own. Can you help me?
Yeah.
Got that resource there that can help you grow that much faster. I think that was a light bulb moment for me. Like say yes and figure it out doesn't mean you have to figure it out yourself.
No, exactly. Yeah. And it's a big one. And another one that I kind of like in parallel to that is like say yes and figure it out. The other thing that I've found is because I'm building up my business. I still think like I've been doing it for 3.5 years. I still think it's super, super young. Anyone that's doing this business, like for less time, they're like, they have all the answers. It's not true because you have to, if you think about it, I have to build relationships with marketing agencies. I have to have customers that are looking for those marketing agencies. And then they have to work with those marketing agencies for a certain amount of time to figure out how good they are. And you need to work with multiple people sometimes because certain personalities don't match. So when you think about it in that context, my business is still very young. Yeah, I found like gems and guys that I've sent tons of work to, and I know they do really good work, but there's still a method of experimenting. So for me, I have my whole process of like, I go through my 30-minute and the 1-hour deep dive and all that stuff. It gets to a point though, where I have to actually use the agency. And so for me to be authentic in front of my customer, I say, look, this is my process. This is the best. My job is to reduce your risk as much as possible. And so sometimes I haven't used these agencies. And so I've done everything I could. I haven't seen any red flags, but at least I want you to do your own vetting and feel comfortable. Because part of me was like, man, I was feeling bad. Like if I had a customer and went to an agency and it didn't work out, I felt bad because I'm like, I want everyone to win in this scenario. But at the same time, knowing my business, I can't control every aspect of that. So what I can control is my transparency with my customers and look, I think these guys would be a good fit because this, and this is how many team members they have. I know the insides and outs of this, but at the end of the day, I haven't worked with them. I don't know what your processes are, Mr. Customer, how fast you respond, what you're looking for, what kind of like personality you have when you're managing marketing agencies and how that fits with them. Like, I don't know a lot of this stuff, but as long as I'm upfront about that and I tell people what to, like where I'm at, I feel comfortable making that connection.
Yeah, I think that's so great. And like, how much of human suffering in general is based in this illusion that we can control things that are out of our control, right? Like you can't control that experience. And like so related to that, I think is that you bring up the issue of personality, right? Everything could be going in your favor. And then you meet this person and go, wow, no, I don't like you. There's something about the way that you smell, the way that you laugh, like the way that you, I know I've listened to recordings of myself and every once in a while when I chuckle a lot, which is kind of obnoxious, but it's just me. And I occasionally take a really loud breath that I've asked my editor to edit out because I hate it. And like, that might be the thing that somebody just does not like about me and they don't want to work with me. And that's fine because we want humans to think logically and rationally, but they don't. They just, I remember we were talking about this actually, because we met right before I ran my first events. And as you can tell, I am a very chill, go with the flow kind of personality. And so I structured my event accordingly. It was kind of like between these hours, we will do these kinds of things, but there's no rigid schedule. And there was one person who was like, so you might want to come up with a schedule because I know if I invited a girlfriend of mine to this event that like she would really struggle and she would be kind of up your ass about what time does this start? What time does this start? And I was like, well, please don't invite that friend.
I was going to say, don't invite her.
This is just not her kind of event. No. And yes, I hear your note and I think I can do better in terms of both time management and communicating what's going on. But I refuse to do a minute by minute, hour by hour breakdown. And here's why. It's like one of the things that I know about myself, tying this back to self-development and really getting to know yourself and your own strengths and weaknesses. I have a very weird pet peeve. Actually, it's probably not that weird. A lot of people suffer from this. For as laid back as I am, if I am running late, I feel intense, almost irrational stress. Like running late is the one thing that will turn me from happy-go-lucky, everybody loves me, Angie, into like, oh my God, get out of my way. I will kill you. Like it's a switch flips. It's kind of like when I run out of energy at the end of the day and I can feel that wall coming to. It's like the personality is about to change. We need to go rest. I know this about myself. And I told her, imagine how different this event would be if we had a really good conversation in the last segment that caused the next one to start late and y'all feel the personality switch. And like, you're here for happy-go-lucky Angie, and suddenly Angie is stressed out because things aren't running on time. And like, that's a thing that was within Angie's control to not make a rigid structure that would stress her out if things ran late, because we want to leave room for those conversations and for things to flow. So like, and it was interesting. It was obvious to me that she had never considered that I might've done that on purpose, not set a rigid schedule for myself. But I was like, look, this is one thing that I know will drive me nuts and will make this a bad experience for people. And so we're just going to do our best to short circuit that process and not make it run late. Like,
yeah. And the beauty of running your own event is you get to choose what you want to do in your event. And that's like the beauty of running my own business. That's also the same thing. I get to choose how I want to run my business. And if you don't like it, don't work with me. Like, I don't fit every agency's model. I don't fit every customer. Some customers don't like the way I do things. That's totally fine. The people that like it will use me, and the ones that don't won't. And I'll always change things up and I'll always try new things because that's just who I am as a person.
Yeah. Well, and I think one of the reasons that we bonded, aside from like mutual love of food and fun experiences, was like, so recently you were in touch with me and all of your partners about I've got a vacation coming up. And when I saw that you were taking a month off to go explore Europe, I was like, yes, fist pumping. Oh my God, this is my person. These are the kind of people that I want to be around, right? Because I know that you're not going to send me somebody that expects me to show up in a corporate suit and sign up for like 5 meetings a day, every day of the week. Like, we're going to make each other miserable.
Yeah.
Any client that works with me is totally cool and probably laughs at the fact that, like, I literally have long-term clients I've worked with for years that know if I have the opportunity to skip out today and go to Disney World, I'm going to take it. And I'm not going to let this, project slide. I'm not going to drop any balls. And that, like, we're not talking about I'm going to screw you over to go play hooky. But if I have the opportunity to do something cool and all of my work is taken care of, I'm just going to be like, I'm out of the office today. I'm going to Harry Potter World. Bye. And they think that's hilarious. And they also know that I'm a digital nomad. If we wind up in the same town, the odds are that I come to your town and we find something fun to do are pretty high.
Yeah.
Let's go adventure. Yes.
Exactly. And I'm sure they know at this point, like based on your personality, you're an artist, right? Like at the end of the day, you need that downtime to do the best work that you need to do. Because you can't be creative if you're always working. It just doesn't work.
Right. This is where capitalism has it back asswards, I think. Like, it's taken me a lot of work to undo that programming of tying my value to my productivity and my time invested.
Yeah.
The fact is that I have an innate talent with strategy that I've developed into a skill, right? With a lot of practice and focus. And I can come up with a strategy like that has a high likelihood of working just based on my experience. And does it matter that I didn't spend hours coming up with that and creating a PowerPoint if we put it into play and it works and it makes you millions of dollars?
Yeah.
What?
Yes, that makes no sense.
And it's taken me a lot of time to really just wrap my head around that and undo the programming of like dollars for hours and putting your butt in a chair. And like, no, actually going out on a hot air balloon ride first thing in the morning in the freezing cold and having brunch with people that I just met. On the drive back, I had this great idea for an email sequence for a client. And I called them up and said, hey, how about we do this? Do you want to get on a meeting? And they're like, yeah, let's get on a meeting. And then, several $100,000 later, they're very happy I went on a hot air balloon ride, Yeah.
That's exactly it. I get my best ideas when I'm resting. So I 100% understand. And once you get to a point where people understand you and you understand them and you don't push people like super hard. Like I have people hired to do stuff like my content writers. I'm just like, look, guys, like get 2 blogs done for me a month. I honestly don't care what days you send it to me on when you do it. Just send it to me and then I'll reply. Or like my designer. Hey man, I need this at some point next week. Can you do it? And he's late. I'm like, okay, I get it. You have 2 kids and you're running all these things and life is hard. Okay, cool. And then I just, like it. And that, I think that relaxed nature actually makes people want to do more for me. Like it's,
yes.
So like, look, man, be's cool. Like be never ask for anything. But when I do ask for something, then they know it's actually serious versus like asking for it all the time. Then they'll go the extra mile to get it done. I'm like, look, man, like I need to get this done. There's a deadline. I'm trying to get to someone. Usually it doesn't happen very often, maybe like once every year.
Mm-hmm.
But like that's just, it's people I think need to have like more open, stronger relationships, speaking to people from a place of being just a human. It's not all about profits. I talk to a lot of my customers and a lot are very profit driven, which is totally okay. But the way I run my business, I don't want to be a multi-millionaire. Like if I get there, great, but it's not a big deal. I'm getting to a point where if I make some more, I'm going to hire, like I have a whole internal team. I'm just going to start getting a VA to manage those projects and then hire maybe one salesperson just so that when I'm on this like month-long vacation, if someone really needs me, I'll just pass it to him or her or whoever it is. Right. Just different. I don't know.
And everybody listening, that if it wasn't already made obvious by the pandemic that business is shifting in a radical way, just let this episode serve as a reminder to you that just what got us here will not get us there. And just because 40 hours a week in a corporate office with people bugging you every 5 minutes because they can just walk by your cube was the way that we used to do it, doesn't mean that's the way that we always have to do it. And like when I realized that was within my power to not buy into that narrative and not put myself into positions where I would have to subscribe to that reality. I don't want that reality anymore. I've literally got a client who on his, how I work document, which I think is really smart. If you are a contractor and work with people, if you've got a little document about how I work and this is how you can get a hold of me and here are some fun facts around me and here are the holidays that I take, like you set expectations really early on and they get to know you and it's great. And one of the expectations, and I work with him, that we set with our clients is we are an anachronistic team. If it doesn't need to be a meeting, we will not have a meeting. We'll film you looms, but like we respect people's time. We don't want to have you task shift. Task switch. There we go. Words. You would think I'm a writer. We don't want you to task switch. We want to keep the projects rolling to the best of our ability. So we're not going to clog up your schedule with pointless meetings. Our team is not all online. You're not signing up for somebody that has availability from 8 to 5 every day. That's just not how we work. Our team, the contractors that we bring in, they are deadline and goal driven, not hours in a chair driven. And as long as they hit their targets and they're communicating with the team and they're showing up to the few meetings that we do ask them to attend, we love this team. And it's exactly like you said, they show up and they want to do even more because we give them that incredible freedom. There's not the micromanaging of where are we on this project? Like more often than not, I forget where the hell we are on the day of the week. And I get an email from somebody checking something off in Asana. I'm like, right, cool. That's the thing we're focusing on today. Yes. Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. See, like, it's good that, like, I really love that model of like having who you are and how you do things. Cause a lot of agencies don't have that. And so that's part of my job is like really trying to understand what an agency does and how they do it. And so, for example, I'll talk to customers like, look, this is an agency that they don't have a salesperson. These are just a bunch of doers. There's 15 of them in there. They'll get shit done, but don't expect like a formal proposal. Don't expect like a super sales pitch. Like you can't expect this stuff from these people because they're just really good at what they do. They just haven't wanted to do the whole process and sales stuff. They're like, look, Behdad, we work with $100 million companies. Like I don't have to sell people. I'm like, well, with my guys, you have to sell a little bit because they don't know you the same way anyone else knows you. So you have to set the customer's mindset around that. Or I have like, I had a customer who was like super detail oriented, like to every little question, wants to meet the team. I'm like, I love it. And it fit with one agency specifically. Like with that agency, I have 2 customers. The one customer that's super detail oriented, blah, 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 fits perfectly with them. Super, super happy. The other agency, the other business was not super happy with the model. Like, so it's like same agency, 2 different businesses, just different personalities that just didn't fit. So you just go, okay, well, if that doesn't fit, let's go find someone else that fits the personality. Now that we found what we didn't like about this one, tell me so then I can work on, okay, the next one has to have this part of their personality. That makes sense.
I think that makes perfect sense. And gosh, I'm just going to go on the record saying, I am so happy that this traditional button down, kiss ass, corporate office culture of being in a cube all day and giving up your life for this company is hopefully slowly, like dying a slow, painful death, and will be in our rearview mirror in the future. Because like, look at how far we've come as a society, right? All right, rant alert here. We've got what a time to be alive. I know that there are political difficulties and economic difficulties and things like that. But if you think about what we used to have to do on a daily basis just to survive without all of this technology, we're talking walking miles to a water well, potentially getting sick from that water in the well if you don't know how to purify it, mending your own clothes, crushing your hand in the old rolly washer machine. There were so many things that took so much time and so much physical effort just to live your daily life, let alone do your work, that now that we've got, oh my gosh, I discovered wash and fold service recently, and that is my newest time save. I will pay people to wash my underwear all day long. Yes, thank you, please. I don't want to do that. Now that I've got that time back, what do I fill it with?
Whatever you like.
Yeah.
Whatever you like.
Isn't that freedom? Like, do we have to fill it up with a whole bunch of tasks and a whole bunch of aggravation from people that we were never going to get along with and didn't like to begin with? Or can we just like focus all of that extra time and bandwidth on finding people that we do like, who we can help, and we could do really great things together, and everybody else that doesn't get that is just not my people, and that's fine.
Yep, that's exactly it.
Wow, I didn't expect nearly as many rants as that, but I love it when it turns out that way. So before we wind up going on for 3 more hours, which I know we could easily do, tell us a little bit more about your business and where they can find you online.
If anyone wants to find me online, you just go to www.cjammarketing.com. And then if you want to find me on LinkedIn, I'm there as well. I think it's either Behdad Jamshidi or BJam. You'll find it underneath those two. Probably the two best ways to connect with me, really. And then every other social media channel I'm on. So you'll find me somehow.
Fantastic. And for those of you who are new to brokers in general, it's fabulous. Like you can see the effort and care that he puts into matching people up, learning about businesses, stuff like that. So like, if you're looking for help with that, I can't recommend B highly enough. I will make sure that they have clickable links in the show notes. And man, just thank you so much for coming on today. It's been
Thank you for having me.
Truly a blast.
Yes, I had a lot of fun. Thanks so much, Angie.
So that is it. Another awesome episode of Permission to Kick Ass on the books. If you want to know more about the show, if you want to know more about me, Angie Coley, and the mission I'm on to help entrepreneurs punch fear in the face and do big, bold things, then head on over to permissiontokickass.com. That is all one word together, permissiontokickass.com. Make sure to sign up for my email list so that you know whenever there's a hot, fresh, and ready podcast episode out for you. And also on Mondays, I like to send out a little newsletter called Kick Monday's Ass. I'm sure you're totally surprised by that. So thank you for being here with me today. I'm Angie Coley. Make sure that you share this with a friend that needs to hear this message today. Like it, share it, comment wherever you're listening to this today, and let's go kick some ass.